Let's move on to the next panel discussion on newsprint. And I'd like to welcome Mr. George Jacob to the dais, and Mr. Sandeep Gupta and Mr. Krishnan from Hindu. Welcome to this panel discussion. I don't think you need any introduction for these three gentlemen here. And I'd like to start this program that when we started talking about this panel discussion on newsprint, we thought, what is industry as a whole need to deal with? What are our issues? One is environmental issues that pretty much dealt with. The other thing is newsprint in India. It's a major cost of our product. Newsprint has the largest, cost factor in our production or in our product. On top of that, although the price of the newsprint, per ton in dollar terms have been very stable or not going up that much, but the erosion of, rupee to dollar value has created a major problem to all of us, and we can all attest to that. In last 6 months, probably dollar has gained 10 to 15%, and how do you deal with that? So that's one thing that, how to manage the waste and all that. Then we are also going to talk about, or going to discuss that how can we not, what are the status of Indian newsprint? What are the issues of Indian newsprint using in a, whether modern machine, double width machine, full speed, quality issues, runnability issues, handling issues. There are a whole host of issues that in front of us. I'm sure all the publishers, especially in India, is dealing with this, day in, day out. I mean, we are, Times of India, we have this issue. We can see that some of the impact of the Indian newsprint, although we like to use the Indian newsprint, and sometimes it's not possible to use the Indian newsprint. I'll just share a data with you that if you look at imported newsprint, my web break with imported newsprint, if it is, say, 1 break per 100 roll, in Indian newsprint is half of that, at best. Okay, Indian newsprint half of that at best. I'm talking about the average, but some of them is probably, even less than that. So how do you deal with this? So we have some issues that we're going to talk about. That, topic number one, this cost versus value analysis of Indian newsprint. And that's where, and second one would be moving from single width to double width, where Malaya and Manorama will share some of the experience they have with the single width to double width. And then handling, storage, and transportation of the newsprint. I would request Mr. Gupta to address that. And lastly, benchmarking newsprint waste. And that will be handled by Mr. Krishnan. He will share that. But I will start with the discussion on cost versus value. When you look at the cost of newsprint, especially Indian newsprint, the reason we want to use the Indian newsprint, definitely the price is less than imported newsprint, logistic, transportation, and all that adds up. But when you look at the value of it, end to end, we kind of, we lose that. We just only look at that value per tonnage. We compare 1 ton of imported newsprint versus 1 ton of Indian newsprint. But if you see all the waste generated with this Indian newsprint, from the wrapper waste, handling, as well as web break, at the end of the day, I do not know how much, what is the ratio of what is the value we are adding from the Indian newsprint. So I'd like to ask you, what are your thoughts or experience with that? How do you see, when you compare Indian newsprint with imported, and, what value do you see? And then how do you deal with all these issues, day in, day out? Because you have a huge production. You have a huge production. For us, one web break, it takes at least 20 minutes from the precious, press time during the peak hour, which is a huge impact. And how do you deal with it?
Let me start. There's a price difference of about 2,000 rupees per ton, which is appreciable. And if it's balanced against, one additional web break, which is going to be more valuable to the company, to the organization. It's a difficult question to answer, but as every organization would have a different way of looking at it. What we do is we have slow speed machines, 45,000, and higher speed machines, 70,000. Mostly Indian. All our machines are Indian actually. There is no imported fancy automated machines. We find that Indian newsprint will run, not all makes will run well on the Indian presses, subject to the odd extra web break. But we don't look only at the price, and we look at the yield. None of the Indian mills have been able to make anything, even 45 GSM, they struggle to get good quality. So when we are driving yield and trying to get higher yields, that is an issue with the Indian newsprint. But otherwise, as logistics is concerned, we have a mill which is within Kerala, which is just 35 kilometers from our plant, our main plant. So in terms of logistics, in terms of damage, we gain. So we tend to distribute Indian newsprint from Mysore and from Kerala to the nearby plants, saving money and transport. And we try to use imported newsprint for the faster machines. And with this, I think we have made a perfect balance. Now, what will happen in the future as all our machines become 70,000 is we are yet to consider. We hope that by then the Indian mills will improve their production qualities. And we are very firm that we would have at least 25% Indian newsprint because we need some kind of a buffer with the foreign suppliers who from time to time have different policies and different rates and different issues, not to mention the foreign exchange fluctuations. So as a policy, we keep a minimum of 25% Indian newsprint. That's us.
Morning. In Dainik Jagran, we, as newsprint is about 60% of the cost, what we do is we are not using more than 20-25% of imported newsprint, and the balance is all Indian. We try to balance out between the Indian manufacturers, which is producing a better quality newsprint, and obviously the mills which are around our area of publications, we try to utilize them. Mostly we find Indian newsprints, naturally there is a variation in grammage, there is a wastage in terms of transportation. Nevertheless, seeing the cost-effective ratios, we do find that it is still beneficial in terms of having this ratio. And mostly we also use only, we only have Indian manufacturers print machines, so not much of a problem in terms of using Indian newsprint. Basically for imported machines you do require more better quality newsprint for higher speeds, but these Indian machines are 35,000 at the most, so we can handle newsprint, Indian newsprints. The problem in terms of the better yield or better savings in terms of Indian newsprint, I would say we do have certain ways of methodology to control as much as possible, but certainly being the mills, the transportation is usually in open trucks. Roads conditions are not so good, so we do not. There is a damage, and vis-a-vis when we compare the imported newsprint, which usually comes from the port directly to our storage godowns in sealed containers, therein the wastage is practically nil. So we have to compensate and make a leverage in terms of the sharing part of Indian versus imported, to see how we can leverage our efficiencies in terms of costings.
Thank you.
In our case, we are not using up to 25%. Mostly we are using maybe 10 to 15% of local newsprint. The reason for that is most of our machines are all double width machines, and a major part of our print order is printed with the double width machines all over the country. We are able to use our local paper only in the single width presses for the reason that we feel that the performance of the local newsprints is not predictable for the double width machines. And the cost concern is, according to the report given by IFRA, the work done by our Anand Srinivasan in IFRA, it shows that there is so much of grammage variation in the local newsprints compared to the imported newsprint. If you consider the small price difference between the imported newsprint and the local newsprint, say between 1,000 and 2,000 rupees, it's not much. But if you consider what we are losing by this grammage variation and the extra wastage percentage we are getting, I don't know whether we are gaining anything by using the local newsprint. Apart from that, the quality-wise, print quality, of course, out of 3 local newsprints we are using, two local newsprints are running well. The runnability factor is good, okay. But considering the printability factor, because of the surface structure of the local newsprint, the print quality is becoming very, very low. We have to run more ink to fill up all the ups and downs in the structure surface of the paper. That means we are spending more in the ink, and apart from that, the quality is also deteriorating. Being very quality conscious in our print area, so we think that we can use only up to 10% of our total consumption. Where we get some freight advantage. Suppose if the plant is situated nearby the manufacturing unit, then we can take this paper and so that we can gain some money out of this freight. Otherwise, you have to import it. You get it in some, say, Chennai port, and then from here you have to transport it to Calcutta. Means that also involves some money. So instead of that, you buy some paper from the local Calcutta manufacturer, then you change there, you gain some money. So just you compensate by that, and then you, apart from that, the dollar exchange rate, always it's fluctuating. Suddenly you buy something, you order for something, and then if it goes up, then you lose money with imported newsprint. So there should be always a balance. With some local newsprint as well as with some imported newsprint. But again, the local newsprint manufacturers, they are also very clever. Always they try to match their price to the imported newsprint. Whenever there is some appreciation in the dollar price, they try to increase that also. They are also very clever. So all by means, but still we need to have some good relationship with our local manufacturers also. So it's all depends on what balance we are having, how to create a balance between the imported and the local newsprint.
Thank you. We at Times of India, our percentage was 10% local newsprint, and we are now moving up to 20%. But some of the problem that we face is with the local newsprint. If the print run is long, it accumulates a lot of lint on the blanket. Sometimes it even wears out the plate. So you have to shut down, clean the blanket, you have to change the plate, and then you move on. So what we are targeting, we want to target this local newsprint to the smaller center where you have a single width machine, shorter run, so I don't have to stop the machine to do this, cleaning and changing of plate, which is, very, very expensive and time consuming. The other thing that we saw, what you said, Mr. Krishnan, that, it takes a little bit more ink. We have seen that, and it's a little bit more, meaning it can take as much as 10% more ink to get the same ink density. And the Times of India being a national newspaper, the lot of national ad, and the advertiser don't care whether, what you're printing, what ink, what press you have, they want same quality. And we have seen that, you run a nice, picture or reproduction on a newsprint, and so you change it to that imported or whatever you're running to a local newsprint, and without touching anything, your delta E goes out as much as 10. So, how do you manage this? So we are, it's a tough situation. And having said that, we're, this is, everything is what I said, that this plan is with the single width press. But having said that, one mill in India, Imami, has done very well to make this double, newsprint for double width presses. Matter of fact, in Calcutta, which is very close to Imami plant, Calcutta, 80% of our production runs on Imami, on double width Regioman. So yes, mills are capable of doing it. It's just how much they want to invest or they want to improve their product. But Imami PM3, and we have worked with Imami. We have worked with Imami for 4 years, and we continue to work with Imami. So it takes a lot of work to work with the supplier, but a lot of smaller mills, that we have across India, I don't know how much, how they're capable of coming to that standard. And I would also like to ask Mr. Jacob on your experience on using, you say double width press, you are going with the imported newsprint.
So far, because we have just started this press 6 months ago, so I'm not really an expert on the double width, but there we are still stabilizing things, so we don't want to take chances with the Indian newsprint, Kerala newsprint. But when we took the trials of the Smart Line press at Kolhapur, we printed about 20 odd lakh copies. It was mostly done on Hindustan newsprint double width. And there were no unusual web breaks or any other such stuff. Of course, ink corruption, other things are. But idea is we have to use indigenous newsprint. We have to use it somehow or the other, because it's very easy to say that's better and therefore go with that. But in years of crisis, we can't suddenly come back and fall back on India and say now we don't know how to print.
Right. That's a very good point.
Yeah, we have to strike a balance between these two. That's important.
Other thing I want to also add is we should also promote some Indian manufacturers.
Sure.
As Jagran always does, tries to does in most of the cases. And herein also I'm not contending that the quality aspect, but it's just that the Indian manufacturers have to be also promoted. And so we naturally, because we use more than 65-70% of Indian newsprint, but there are quality issues, there are issues which you just mentioned. Nevertheless, because being slow speed machines, or you can say single width presses, we don't find that much of problem. There is a variation in shade once you have a complete product having imported and Indian mix. So there is a problem in terms of the shades and in terms of the quality of the picture. The picture aspect is not so good as compared to imported, certainly. But we try to, as I said before, leverage out and see also the costings, which I do find if I use Indian newsprint, the wastages, etc., do not go more than 0.4% more. So if I compare the costings from 0.4% to the cost I buy, so it is actually a win-win situation for us.
Thank you. Do you work directly with some of the mills? Do you work continuously with some mills?
Yes, Imami, as you said, we do with Pragati, we do with mostly these two mills we do, but not at all with other mills like Nepa and all. They just do not cooperate in terms of the quality aspects. But these two mills really are thriving, and they are producing good quality paper.
You know, Mr. Gupta, one of the concern you talked about, when we were setting this up, that storage handling. Do you have any training program for your people to how to handle or?
Certainly yes, because newsprint, we also do consume about 150,000 tons a year. So we have all sorts of clamp operated forklifts in most of our centers, ranging from 1 to 5 forklifts in a site. Every newsprint or container is handled through the forklifts and stacked to 6 to 7 as depending on the sizes of the godowns. As I said, Indian newsprint has problems in terms of, because once the transportation is on the open trucks, road conditions are extremely poor. So we do find damages happening there, but we try to freshen up those damages as soon as the newsprint lands, and we have a system of immediately consuming the mishandled, you can say, newsprint first, so that we can take care with the insurance company the damages and consume as soon as possible the same, instead of putting it at the back and waiting and all that. Handling is to be done very carefully, as you also, I saw in the Times of India presentation, the clamp settings and pressure. It's very important, otherwise you tend to damage the core, and once the core is damaged, obviously the roll cannot be used, and you have to discard it or send it for rewinding. So handling is important, and and we also try to avoid as much as avoid one step in terms of just take out from there, put it on the godown and directly take it to the floor, instead of putting it back and then again sending it to other site. So this actually you then involve 2 or 3 more handlings, which again increases the wastage. So the less number of handles you do, and it actually also impacts to 0.2 or 0.1% savings there, right there.
Thank you. Krishnan, any more comment, or otherwise I'll open up for questions?
As far as the transportation damages during the transportation concern, actually we have an agreement with the manufacturers that they should transport the paper through their transporters. But any damages occurs, then they have to compensate for that. Even from our warehouse to our print center, we have some local transporters. We have instructed them to dedicate separate trucks for us, and in that truck they shouldn't have any nail or anything like that. Then the surface should be smooth. All these things. Actually, we paid some money for in advance to them to make to correct all the to enhance the quality of the truck itself. And then any damage has occurred, afterwards they have to compensate that to the extent of the damage, not any part of the damage or anything like that. If we lose, say 100 kgs of paper, then they have to pay for that 100 kgs of paper. That's the agreement between the transporters and us. So that's how we deal with them. Once it comes to the print plant, then you use your own forklift to handle it properly. Then it becomes your thing. You have to take care of your own thing. That's it.
Thank you. We see that, our data says that 70% of our web breaks are due to newsprint. And I would say 50% of that 70% is due to out of round. So there's a lot of out of round, from the handling, transportation, forklift, all that comes into the picture. And this really get further magnified by the speed of the machine. So when you have high-speed machine, any out of round, you have no place for, to compensate for that. So that's some of the number that we have. Having said that, I would like to open it up for question to the panelists. Do you have any questions? Yes. And before we start asking questions, I know there are a lot of publishers here. I'm going to hand out some questionnaire, very simple. And if you can fill it out, we can create a, sort of our industry benchmark. I think there is no better place than here to get these questionnaires filled out. Just simple like 10 questions. How much newsprint do you use? What is the ratio between local versus imported, total waste? And just give correct information, and then through IFRA we'll share it with you so you can really compare. You don't have to write your name, who you are. Just give them information. I really appreciate that. And question, please.
Sir, my name is Neeraj. As a reader, I am asking the question. I am a reader for Jagran for last 10 years. Question is, why some newspapers don't put priority on the quality, whereas as a reader, we like to have better quality. Means Jagran, especially, sometimes it is very painful to read, means out of registration, is that kind of things.
I think we should try to give this question very much related to newsprint rather than quality. I don't know whether it's coming from newsprint or not. But anyway.
Well, if you use, as I said before, that we use about 70%, close to 70% Indian newsprint. And there is a variation in shade, in quality, and obviously the standards of, you can't compare with imported newsprint which is a smoother surface, you have less deposition, you have a higher run lengths. Obviously you have to, once you are balancing your costings, therein you have to see Indian newsprint, once the mix is there, the quality would deteriorate when you compare to imported. It is just not, I can't really say that the Indian newsprint is as good as imported and the quality would be the same. It's just not possible. If I start using Imami or something, that also because of the lack of production in their mills, is certainly the availability is not there then in some of those mills. So there are issues over there. In terms of quality,
often, or the shape differs within one lot a lot. That's what I mean.
Sanath, you'll have to answer because we are not using Indian at the moment.
We are not able to even insert the chucks. If it is a double width press, it's okay. Chucks can be inserted only for a few certain limits. But if it's a single width press, we have to insert the whole shaft inside, which is nearly impossible.
I can address to you this wobbling. Okay, you go ahead.
You mean because of the ovality in the shape, you are not able to introduce that shaft into the core?
Yes.
That's what you mean?
Yes. Sometimes it leads into core bend or the shape loss of the hole.
You mean you are asking a remedy for that?
Yes, please.
Previously, what we used to do for that, in those days, in olden days, we used to have some mechanical chucks. Instead of that air shaft, putting it throughout the core,
Okay.
you use a shaft and then use some mechanical chuck and then you put it and then you use it. That's the only possibility. Other thing is, you have to ask the manufacturer why it comes like that.
Okay. The small question, one more please. There are some people purport to give with 150 millimeter core dia. Is it possible to use in India? 150 millimeter core diameter. By adding some extension, is it possible to use in Indian conditions?
I think, in the manufacture, they don't have a standard core diameter. We also have seen that.
Okay.
There's no standard core diameter. I mean, these are some of the things that, as we get to use the Indian newsprint more and more, I think this will come into a, standard numbers. But as far as your wobbling goes, I think this is all comes from handling. Your core is also, like how it is handled. Was it dropped? I've seen newspaper, brought in a very nice truck and then drop on a mattress. I mean, you can imagine what will happen to your core.
Thank you, sir.
Normally,
One last question before we break for lunch. One last question. There was a gentleman right here. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, I am Swapna from the Hindu. Normally when you talk about newsprint, you are talking about copies per kg. Mileage is calculated as copies per kg. But Indian newsprint is less costly, but with more wastage. So is there any calculation which says copies per rupee, which is, you can compare both Indian and imported newsprint?
That can be done. I don't think that would be any
No,
difficult.
if that is already there, you can have an idea of which is
I'm
more
sure,
usable. Which is
I'm
more
sure,
usable.
if Jagran is using Indian newsprint, he's not losing money on that. I mean, he just said, there's a big advantage.
Yeah. Now, what is the advantage? Because you are losing on quality. So, what is the rupee advantage?
No, it's not. I would let Mr. Gupta answer that.
There is a quality issue which I mentioned before, but there is a price advantage. So you have to see the cost versus quality. The Indian newsprint saving, I would not say call it savings. It's a management decision actually. What kind of mix you want to put it in the newspaper. The Indian newsprint is cheaper, as George just mentioned in his opening statement. It's about 2,000 to 2,500 rupee per ton cheaper. Depending also on the mills from where you're getting the freight costs, etc. Certainly there are good Indian newsprints. We try to patronize them. There is a saving in terms of if you handle it properly. Main thing is handling of Indian newsprint. Imported newsprint, the handling issues are very less, but Indian newsprint you have to handle it properly, stack them properly, issue them properly, put the rolls to the floor properly. If you can handle all that processes, certainly you will find substantial savings in that.
One last question, then we have to break for lunch.
Yeah. Can I go for it?
Sure.
I am Kulbir Chikara, representing Haribhumi Group of Publications. Very brief question to all the panelists, including the chair, that keeping in view the rapidly changing situation in terms of exchange rate of dollar, what kind of purchase agreement on newsprint front are your organizations going for? Are they long-term, medium-term or short-term? Means 3 months purchase, 6 months purchase, or can it still be annualized as it used to be earlier? Thank you.
Normally, we buy together as a group, the Hindu ourselves, Madhurumi and Deccan Herald, and all our contracts are normally quarterly. All pricing is quarterly.
Same here, quarterly purchases, and with Indian manufacturers, we have to plan a little bit in advance. But imported, yes, the orders are placed in terms of a contract or mutual understanding for at least a certain period before any type of price rise is expected or something.
we have a consortium, so 2 or 3 printers. We form a group and then we ordered so that we can get a better price also, and accordingly every quarter we will order.
Is it financial quarter?
Yeah?
I mean, the problem with the newsprint suppliers is that their quarter starts just before a kind of price rise. So is it
It's in the dollar
financial quarter? Means it is a Jan to March and then April to June. Is it like this?
financial quarter.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Please share the data. I think after lunch we'll also, we'll give you a quick review of that. And thank you very much for attending this session. Big round of applause for our panelists.